There, what do you think?
I was blown away, honestly. This is my first visit. I've been to the memorial cemetery next door last year, but 17,000 acres, which is really designed not only to support the National Guard here in Pennsylvania, 18,000 members of the National Guard here in PA, but also troops and soldiers from around the world and around America come to train here. 100,000, more than 100,000 a year. So the size and the scope of the facility here, the critical missions they do, the air wing that is based here in Pennsylvania, supported Operation Midnight Hammer. I mean, this is important stuff, really critical for the country and obviously critical for Pennsylvania.
Do you have any deeper appreciation given what happened last week in
Yeah,
DC with the
well,
guardsmen?
I'm glad you raised that. Yeah, the two guardsmen obviously shot, really an assassination attempt on one unfortunately lost her life. And I said when I opened up the meeting here, just a reminder that the young men and women that are serving us put themselves in harm's way, and it was a real tragedy and one that we need to make sure doesn't happen again.
Senator, as a result of that, President Trump has called for a review of all the Afghan refugees that were resettled in the States, as I understand it. How do you feel about that move?
Listen, I
Do you feel
think
like that's
it's
necessary, or?
absolutely necessary. Yeah, I think what we saw here was some sort of failure in the review process, that someone who could come into our country and either have been radicalized before they came or became radicalized while they're here. I think it certainly begs the question, how could that possibly have happened? So I think having a review of all the amnesty that was given under the past administration for countries that pose a particular terrorist threat is just common sense. I think we should. Now, I also feel like that someone who served us, with us in Afghanistan or Iraq, places where these people put themselves in harm's way to support the mission, I think they should have hold a special place in our hearts in terms of our responsibility and loyalty to them. But the process for vetting has to be rigorous. We have to ensure that we don't let people in here who could risk American lives, and this tragedy just brought that into focus.
Yeah. One more on that. Apropos to your being here today, I was just kind of curious about, did that shooting make you feel any differently about the idea of the administration's decision to use National Guard troops and deploy them in some of the cities? I mean, I don't know if I've ever heard you speak about it before, but do you like the idea or hate the idea, or
My
and has
comment
this
has been,
changed?
I think using our National Guard selectively in the ways that the president has can and does make sense. And the only experience I have firsthand with it is Washington, D.C., where I spend part of the time, obviously, when I go to vote. And it's been remarkable, the difference that it's made in Washington, D.C. It's made, the crime there was really significant. The violent crime was some of the highest in the country. The carjackings, the violence on the streets, and it's changed overnight. And you can really feel it. And the National Guard folks that are walking around there, they're cheerful and they bring security, and I think people really appreciate it. And I've heard that from people across the political spectrum that I know in Washington. So my firsthand experience with it has been very good. And anytime you put our military into harm's way, you have to think about it and make sure that's deployed with a lot of care. But I think in the case of Washington, D.C., it made a lot of sense.
Would you, well, let me rephrase that. Do you think they should be deployed to Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or one of these large places?
I think it's going to be case by case. It's going to depend on what's already going on there. And so I wouldn't want to opine on either one of those places, but I do think the president using that authority in places where that are crime-ridden and really pose a risk to our citizens is a sensible thing to do.
There's been a lot of reporting about the Secretary of Defense and the Venezuelan boat situation. Do you have any thoughts, just based on what you've seen and what he's also said himself?
Well, listen, here's sort of the bottom line. Stepping back, we had an incredible threat to the American people from fentanyl and these opioids that were coming into our country. 100,000 people died last year, and 4,000 of those were in Pennsylvania from this fentanyl crisis. And the primary cause of it is the supply that's coming across our open border, pushed by narco-terrorists. And so during the campaign, I said, listen, number one, we have to secure the border, which we fortunately have done. Two, we have to declare these cartels as the terrorist organizations they are. They carry military weaponry. I mean, these are sophisticated terrorist, military, quasi-military organizations. And then third, we have to use our military selectively to destroy that terrorist, narco-terrorist infrastructure. And that's exactly what the president's doing. So I believe the use of military force to take out those cartels, to take out those boats bringing drugs to our country is an imminent threat. I believe it's justified. I think it's very consistent with what happened when I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, which is the president deployed the 82nd Airborne to Panama, partially under the justification that Noriega was a narco-terrorist. So I think that precedent is well established, and President Obama used drones to take out 500 occasions that were similar in scope. So I think there's no question about that. Now, in terms of the reports on Secretary of Defense, he has said that's not the case. The reports have said that they aren't. The Senate now the Senate Armed Services Committee is going to investigate. I think that's appropriate, and let's get the facts. So we don't know what happened. There's two conflicting stories. I think the Uniform Code of Military Justice is clear, and it says essentially that if a combatant is unarmed and doesn't pose an imminent threat, then we shouldn't take action to kill them. That they should be taken prisoner or something like that. So we'll see what the facts are in this case, but right now we don't know.
Just to be clear, when you're talking about this case, you're talking about this second strike allegation.
Second. I think that's what
Right,
you were
yeah,
referring
okay,
to.
that's correct.
We have time for one more.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, given, as we heard today, you've got a lot of PA National Guard connections and members over in overseas parts of the world right now, and a lot of connections in Ukraine as well. Given what is being talked about, do you think do you think this is going to be a fair deal, especially based on what we've seen?
I think we don't know what the deal is yet. I mean, my starting point on this is, listen, there was aggression by Russia invading Ukraine, so that's the starting point. And we need to bring the fighting to an end. It's that's killed millions of people. It's destroyed the economy of Ukraine. It's done enormous damage to Russia. And I support what the president said months ago in terms of laying out a plan, which is to have a ceasefire, likely along the lines of demarcation, by and large, of where the forces currently are. Two, that we need to have a security agreement, an arrangement, and support from the Europeans for Ukraine that assures them sovereignty. And this can't be a situation where Russia steps back, rearms itself, and invades again in 2 years. So whatever security assurances, they have to be strong. And I think the United States should stand behind that with equipment and intel, but not put troops on the ground. And then I think there needs to be some sort of economic arrangement that gets access to the rare earth metals in Ukraine, that benefits the Ukrainian people, also the American people. Part of that will help pay for the investment that we made in Ukraine. I think that's appropriate, but it's also a deterrence to Russia further aggression against Ukraine in the future. That outline, I think, makes a lot of sense. You know, this 28-point plan is now a 19-point plan. It's being negotiated back and forth. I think what Secretary Rubio said is true, which is both sides are going to have to make concessions. They're going to be uncomfortable. That's the nature of an agreement, and seems like they're making progress, but we'll see.
Can I get one little parochial question in?
You always do this, but it's okay. Last question.
Just, is there any new movement from your vantage point, and I recognize you maybe don't control the universe on this issue, but any new movement on finding a new user for that closed steel mill, the Cleveland Clips plant and steel mill?
Yeah, I know there's lots of conversations underway. I don't think I'm in a position to say how optimistic I am yet or not, but I know there's lots of activity to try to find a good landing spot on that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Senator.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you. Nice to see you.